for the second presentation. But I know Hussein is going to do a huge presentation. Hussein, it's from Reuters University. He did, 2 days ago, we had a workshop, and we had the privilege to have Hussein to tell our partners and our managers about all this thing about the testing the whole population, and it was a fantastic presentation. And Hussein, before he wanted to be a professor, he tried to be a comedian. So it didn't work out, but he still tells good jokes. So really pay attention, because it's going to be a great presentation full of jokes. Hussein, you have the floor. I'll put the presentation.
Thank you, Kleber. And so what Kleber is trying to say is that when I make a joke, you better laugh, because this is better for my ego, right? Because, I mean, for my self-esteem at least. So this paper that I'm going to talk about now, it takes a slightly different perspective than what we have been discussing in the past, like yesterday and today. And that we're not talking here about the actual application of, for example, an emerging technology. What we're talking about here is we're looking at it from the educational perspective. I'm from Rutgers University. That automatically implies that some of my research relates to emerging technologies, applications of emerging technologies in accounting and in auditing, right? I mean, that's by default. And one of the things that we do in our research, we look, for example, and you can see that from the presentations, we do AI, machine learning, so we look at cryptocurrency, cybersecurity, RPA, I don't know if I mentioned like blockchain, etc. Now, one of the difficult things that we noticed over time is that we do all this research. However, we don't really share it with our students. Now, I'm not talking PhD students. I'm talking like, for example, undergraduate and even like master's students. We don't really share that information because usually, like the accounting curriculum is a boxed curriculum. How many of you here had a lot of flexibility when you were studying at school? Please raise your hand. Like you could have, for example, I don't know, pick the topic that you want. Please raise your hand, anyone who can do that. How many of you would go usually, like, for example, to a pizza place and you select what you want on top of your pizza? Please raise your hand. I mean, this is a pizza. You're going to eat and you're going to forget tomorrow or like in a couple of hours. But education, which is going to affect all your life, your career, you still don't have any flexibility with it. You are told what you want to learn, and if there's a new topic that you're interested in learning, you can't. How many of your students are able to, for example, to learn about all these topics that I just mentioned, about process mining and text mining and AI, and at the same time about RPA and blockchain and cybersecurity and cryptocurrency and all these? How many of your students or your people that you train? Because like if you're training someone like a junior auditor, they are students in a way, right? You're teaching them. You're training them. They don't have that. So one of the things that Miklos had a couple of years ago, we started to actually record all our lectures, undergraduate, graduate, and PhD level. And we put them all on YouTube. We all watch YouTube, right? What happened is that students have very short span of attention. So the attention span is like just few. Like you can't give them, for example, a whole course on YouTube and tell them, okay, watch the whole course. You lose them. So we started thinking about it from a different perspective. Maybe we need to cut it into smaller pieces. Cut the video that is a 3-hour video or an hour and a half into smaller modular pieces. And then we posted them online. The problem is that while the knowledge is on YouTube, students don't get credit for it. So we tried to do that at the university level. And that's how this whole story started. So we started thinking about how can we actually share our research, which was actually one time like we had a visit from a very senior person from one of the big four, and they said, we were presenting to them like our research, and they were like, please teach your students these things. This is what we're interested in. We want the future students to learn that. And that says how we started thinking about it. So in this case, we know that there are certain things. It's fine. I'm just gonna, yeah, thank you. So we know that, for example, topics are popping up. Imagine that, for example, you are already in an accounting program, okay? And most of the accounting programs are unfortunately still, they haven't changed that much in the past couple of decades, not years, decades. We still use basically the same books in Intro to Financial Accounting and Intermediate Accounting. Certain things change, the cover, for example, the name of the author maybe, but the actual things inside are the same. However, AACSB accreditation, which is the highest accreditation for business schools, now require the curriculum in a business school to incorporate more emerging technologies across the curriculum. That's difficult. One of the reasons is that it's not fair or reasonable to expect all faculty to know about all technologies. Right? Like, I don't know, for example, I don't do text mining. My colleague does. I do RPA research. My colleague does not. I'm just giving an example. So usually this is why we work in teams, etc. So this change has pushed for more and more demand for incorporating emerging technologies in the curriculum as well, not just in research or in practice, but also in education. That's because the students today are the auditors of the future. Unless we train them to use the technologies that will be used later on, we're basically failing them. We're not doing them a favor. And that's how it started. And so this is like, okay, let's skip these. You have, one of the things that actually is affecting also education is that students, when they don't find, and again, I'm talking about it from an educator's perspective now, and not just a researcher, but students, when they don't find what they are looking for in your institution, at your school, they will find it somewhere else. They will go to Coursera. They will go to edX. They will go to Udemy. They will take a small course. The competition nowadays for universities is not just other universities. You want to learn Tableau, visualization? Tableau actually offers you courses and certificates. Certificate of completion that, okay, I finished this level of Tableau. Same thing happens with Celonis and process mining or UiPath. Add to that the courses that are offered by Coursera, like not just Coursera, but courses that are also offered by like Microsoft and Google. And those companies, they have a lot more money than universities. So their slides are way nicer than mine. Look at mine. They are boring. I mean, sometimes I look at my slides and I fall asleep. That's why I'm kind of like, I'm pinching myself now not to fall asleep just looking at the slides. And if you notice, I look at you because at least that keeps me awake. I look at my slides, I would be like, oh my God. Anyways.
That's why you tell jokes.
Yes, that's why I tell jokes, right? And I was actually like planning at the end of the presentation of like, I asked for a handheld microphone. I would drop the microphone, but I was told if I break it, I will have to pay for it. Miklos warned me that the university will not reimburse me for it. So I'm just gonna hit unmute. I'm gonna hit the mute button. I'm not gonna drop the microphone. Now, so think about it this way. We started thinking about all these technologies that we do research on, that we use in practice, however, that companies are investing in them and they are interested in them, and at the same time, our students know nothing about them. How can you combine these 2 points that are so far not together? So we started to think about, okay, this is the competition that we're dealing with. How are they creating their courses? What's the thing? Miklos started talking about the school with 1 million course. And people would say, like, how do you talk about a school? Like, how can a school have 1 million course? 1 million, like, how? although we know in accounting, for example, accounting programs, they are very, very structured. You do intro to financial accounting and managerial accounting, and then you go to intermediate, and then you go, for example, to cost accounting, intermediate 2, advanced, etc. But they are still structured, very structured. And so the idea here is that, okay, you want to do that. Let's see how we can do it. Competition started to do what? Competition started to create smaller modules, targeted learning. And in that case, more or less, the students have the ability to select whatever they want to learn. They want to learn about process mining, they go to Solonis. They don't have to actually take a whole thing. They can take a small course. Because keep in mind that most of the time where the students are not interested in becoming experts, and they are not expected to become experts in all these emerging technologies. That's just not going to happen. But they still need to know or would want to know a little bit about everything. Think of it like tapas, right? You have an appetizers, right? You have like small things, you share it. Or like you're not going to have like a whole meal of the same thing. But you still want to have some tortillas with guacamole, for instance, right? But you don't want to have this as the main meal. This is where sea bass comes in, because I love the sea bass here. And paella. Okay. So you have the main content, and you also have the things that you want to learn a little bit about. Unfortunately, the current curriculum requires you to take 3 credit courses, practically, of any topic you want to learn about. So if you want to learn about cybersecurity from Maria will have, basically there's a 3 credit course. And that's where we cannot do. This is where the concept started. We started to think about it like that. Okay, I can't really learn everything. So I want to learn a little bit about each of these topics. We broke it down into smaller pieces. That was not easy. First of all, university systems do not allow you as instructor to have a short, like a lecture, just only as a lecture. The minimum we could go is 1 credit course. Fine. Let's do it as 1 credit course. Let's have it as smaller pieces. And then we had other faculty members who would start saying that, no, you can't do that. This is our, basically, like management information systems would say that, no, this is our area. So one of the things that we started doing, and we will see, we started thinking about it. Okay, let's talk about smaller piece. So we broke it down into a lecture, 1 week worth of learning. And that limitation, just to continue, just to clarify, we actually were able, on YouTube, we have some videos that are broken down even further, but the registration system does not allow us to do that. So instead, a student can actually sign up, not currently, this is actually a system that we created and we've been using for the past couple of years. You can actually, the student can register for 1 credit course. That's equivalent to 5 weeks worth of learning. 5 weeks, 5 lectures. Or 5 modules, think of it this way. Students can sign up for modules. Every 5 modules will make up 1 credit course. And then they can take 3 of these, that's 3 credits. And eventually, the concept behind the like SWAM or build your own course is to have it as, okay, you can go all the way up to a degree, a university degree, given that the registration system allows for that. Miklos mentioned yesterday that we wanted to have just 1 course where students sign up and register for it multiple times. The system doesn't allow for that. So we had to create multiple courses. Now, if you want, I can show you very quickly how this works. And that maybe helps understand how, and then I can move back to the presentation. Can I do that now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So this is the website that we created. And if you want to explore with it, if you want to play around with it, please go ahead. It's simple. BYOC stands for Build Your Own Course. And byoc.business.rutgers.edu. And as a student, you would log in here, scroll down, you log in using your account. Now, because currently you don't have accounts, what you can do is you can actually click on the free demo. Assuming that Vinod, Kleber, and I are registered in this free demo course, the three of us, it doesn't mean that each one of us will be taking the same modules, the same content. That's where the system was this is where the innovation of the system comes from. So for instance, I'm interested in learning about continuous auditing and continuous monitoring. I can select this topic. It comes along with its videos, with its assessments, and everything. On the other hand, Kleber is interested in learning more about, for example, blockchain. Or in this case, that can be used like that. Vinod wants to learn about automation. Vinod would select this module. That's a flexibility. And if you go to the module, for example, you can accept it, and then you can go, for instance, to like you have the video, you can look at your course, you have the video, you have the lectures, assignments, files, etc. And I'm not gonna go it's not show like the system specifically, just to explain to you how. You see, I selected one module now, right? If I'm registered for a course, I can select 5 different modules. This is where the school with a million courses comes from. Every course is unique to every student. When we started this, the first time we launched the system was in spring 2021. We expected, in the middle of the pandemic, and we expected honestly to have something like 20 students. And we had 200. Apparently students like the flexibility. Students, they like the fact that they can learn about topics that are of interest to them without having to take 3 credit courses for every topic. Currently, our students, if they in the traditional system, if a student wants to learn about cybersecurity, blockchain, and, for instance, RPA, they would have to take 3 credits, and 3 credits, and 3 credits. That's 9 credits. The system doesn't allow for, the curriculum does not allow for that. They don't have this flexibility. Now, they don't have to take 9 credits. They actually take 3 modules. Of course, the amount of learning is less than 3 credit courses. But that's the point. Plus, a 3 credit course is difficult to create, and to get it approved, there's a long process. So one of the things that, let's say, we see emerging technologies pop up all the time, like ChatGPT. So a student might want to understand how ChatGPT works, right? Instead of having to create a whole entire course that students may or may not be interested in learning that much about it, they just want to see how it's trained. They take a module. Last year, the Strategic and Emerging Technologies section of the AAA of the American Accounting Association had a workshop where the main theme was quantum computing in business. So some students are interested in learning about quantum computing applications in business, but they are not going to be they don't want to learn it to the point where they can go work for IBM. They want to simply understand how it was. So what we did, we created a couple of modules that explain quantum computing and that explain the applications of quantum computing, and we posted them on the system. It allows us for flexibility to add new and emerging technologies as soon as they pop up without having to worry that much about approving courses. That's one thing. The other thing, it allows for collaboration between different schools. For instance, Comillas University is using a couple of those modules in their classes. Why? Again, I don't know, for example, text mining, but I want to introduce my students to text mining. What do? I borrow a module that was created by one of my colleagues. I want to do something related to cybersecurity. That's not my area. I'm not an expert in that. Maria is. So I have Maria. I can use a module that was created by Maria, etc., etc. So that's the main idea. You understand now the concept behind it. So we launched it, and we started to actually look at how things go. And this is where we start to think about it. And then we noticed that there are other components that are necessary for the entire system. So the students, when they are faced with so many modules, they really have trouble finding which ones to select. Right? So we thought that, okay, at this point, they need some kind of advising. When you have a large number of students, advising them is a little bit difficult. So now we're creating a recommender system attached to this, based on, and the information in that recommender system comes from different locations, such as students' previous courses, whatever they learn, what they know, their technical skills, job listings on, for example, accounting firms' websites, what skills they are looking for, all these things. And it comes with, for example, like if you're interested in working in tax, this is one thing, as opposed to, for example, assurance, that's like audit is a different thing. So in this case, based on your own interests, the student's interest, background, etc., the recommender system will make some recommendations as to what modules to select. So that was one of the things. We call it Budweiser. Well, yes, it's not Budweiser, it's Budweiser. So be careful. Because it's a bot, and it's an advisor, and it's not a kind of beer. Come on, Jonas, give me a break. Okay, but it's close. Actually, this is why we selected the name. It's very close. People, will like it, right? It reminds them of the good days. And then you have, once you once you create this course, the nice thing about it is that it's not going to tax your base. It's not going to add burden to the students when they have limit them as far as their education is concerned. Okay, it allows for the delivery. So then you have the delivery system which we created. We had to create it from scratch. The website that I just showed you, one of our PhD students, Chingman, she actually created the system from scratch. That's because we couldn't find any learning management system that can deliver it in that customized way. We are actually in the process of talking to Coursera to add some of this content there. However, even Coursera cannot, at this point, they don't have the ability to have two students registered in the same course, but with completely different content. They are learning flexible and customized learning. You can see here that the learning is customized to each student's background and each student's wants and each student's interest and their future career, like the goals or for something like that. So the other thing is, again, it comes, of course, with assessments. Lena is actually a learning analyzer. So basically, again, for the students to see how they are performing and for us as educators to assess and evaluate their performance in class. When you have 200 or 300 students, because now we have over 300 students every semester practically, it's difficult to track what they are doing, especially that they are taking different things. So like the final exam, it cannot be, for example, just final exam for everyone. Every student has a different exam because they are learning a different content. Right now we're sitting in the room, all of us are, like all of you guys are listening to what I'm saying at this point, right? And wondering, what is this guy talking about? Right? So many of you may want to sleep. Please don't. Come on. It's not good for me. But anyways, my boss is here. So come on. So you don't embarrass me in front of Miklos and Helen. Please don't do that. Anyways, the other thing that we started to consider and work on is 24/7 support because of the, by the way, I forgot to mention something important. The system is asynchronous. Students, they watch videos at their own pace. They can watch it over the weekend and study it over the weekend, which actually helps a lot students who work, who have jobs. They come back from work, they are tired, they don't want to listen to it the whole time. They can actually watch the video at their own pace, and then they do the assessments at their own pace when it's suitable for them. But that also makes it difficult when you want to provide them with support, with help, explain things. So we actually wanted to have some kind of a bot that would do that. OpenAI kind of did that for us for now. So they can actually, the idea is now you can see that ChatGPT is doing something similar. We had the same idea, but we didn't have the same resources. So they have ChatGPT, we have nothing. But hopefully we'll be able to piggyback on that. At this point, what you will be, the idea is that you can ask a question and get some kind of explanation. Again, this is a conceptual framework, keep that in mind. After that, of course, you have a grade, which is basically calculated across the entire modules that they learned. Now, feedback is important for us because the students need feedback and you need feedback from the students. And that's what we use in order actually to improve the system. So we had 2 pilot cases. So we had a course, that system was used for graduate courses and it was used for undergraduate courses. Again, at the beginning, it was simply to test it. That was a beta system. And we ran. So some of the things that we actually ran were like surveys. And by the way, I'm gonna actually skip slightly faster because I want to hear some of your feedback, some of your suggestions, questions, etc. Now, one of the things that actually start to think about is what do students need and what do faculty need? As a faculty, for instance, I want to be able to evaluate the students' performance regardless of what content they are having, right? I want to actually be able to provide some advice and some advice to my students. However, I don't want to spend countless hours. I used to teach in those mega classes. We call them mega classes because in my class there would be like 400 students. Intro to financial accounting, 400 students. I'm short. I'm sitting. This is why you can see me. But when I stand, it's not that difficult to see. I'm short, far away from the screen. People can't even see what I'm writing, especially that I have a very bad handwriting. So when I'm trying to explain something, it has to be on the screen. The point is, 400 students sitting way in the back, trying to understand what I'm talking about, it's not easy, even with the use of technology. Using a recording can help them a lot. Now, advising 400 students, that's out of question. Just their communication, I used to get like 200 emails a day from students requiring some assistance. That used to take countless hours. So this is what I would need as a faculty. I need also, for example, assistance with the content. I don't know all the content. I want to be able to have guest speakers. How many of you ever attended a place where you had guest speakers? We always have guest speakers, right? We always invite people. Why do you do that? Because you want their expertise. If I want someone to talk about an expert in auditing, I would, for example, invite Kleber, because he will know a lot more than me. As a result, my students will learn a lot more from him about that specific topic. However, Kleber doesn't have time to indulge basically my students and Helen's and Miklas's and Maria's and Michael's and everyone else. As a result, if he has a module there, that would be very helpful. That's the idea here, again, behind the content that I would need. Students, on the other hand, they want the flexibility of selecting topics that they are interested in. By the way, if noticed, I'm trying my best not to look at the slides because, again, remember, they are boring and I can fall asleep. I don't know. I seriously don't know how you haven't started snoring yet, but I think my jokes are good. They are working well. I'm happy with that. Yes. One of the things is they also want to have not just flexibility in the content, but also flexibility in the timing when they want to study it, especially if they have jobs, internships, all these things. They want to have flexibility in selecting topics that are up to date. They want to learn about things that are like buzzwords. All students, as soon as you mention ChatGPT, they wake up. Not just because they want to use it to cheat. That's already, they started to do that. They wanted to see if they can actually use it to learn something from it, or to how to use it in order to help them write an essay. Or I asked yesterday, for example, they use it to write emails. Some people are using ChatGPT, for example, to break up with their boyfriends. True story. I know someone who she used ChatGPT to write a text message to her boyfriend to break up with him. But at least on the bright side, he could not take it personally. So this is some of the things that you can think about. Students also want to do something else. We asked the students for feedback. Why did you register in this course? I may be skipping a couple of slides ahead, but it's fine. One of the things that they mentioned, they were missing 1 or 2 credits to graduate. They are in their last semester, they want to graduate, and they had to drop out of the class because they were failing it. And at the same time, they still need those credits, otherwise they're not going to graduate. They have a job offer, and if they don't graduate, they lose the job, etc. So it's going to affect them severely. Apparently, they found a solution that is not just practical, but also helpful and useful to them in this kind of learning. And that's basically another thing that we did. We used some of these contents, and that was the original idea. This is where we started at the beginning, where we had to create some kind of box courses. So originally we wanted to have courses where the students can select any module they want. Well, some faculty in the business school at Rutgers, they disagreed with us very, very strictly, and we were unable to get those approved. FYI, I just got tenured, so as a result, I can say these things now without getting fired. So, plus you guys are not going to like tell on me, right? This is a secret between us. I know it's recorded and it's etc., but it's still a secret. The thing is, they wouldn't let us do that because the traditional way of thinking for educators is that each course must have a theme. But why? Why does it have to be a theme? If I like pineapple on my pizza, it's okay to have pineapple. If I want to have like strawberry on my pizza, why not? I like it this way. So anyways, we had to have some kind of themes. What we were able to sneak in is that we had one course that does not have any themes. So it can have practically any module, any content we want. And this is what we've been using to sneak in new content. If any one of you is interested, for example, in doing this, please let us know. We're more than happy to actually work with you on creating content that is added. Like, for example, we have a marketing faculty now who's adding a module on the metaverse. We have another one who's actually doing something related to tax. And the thing is here, like we had a new one where like Comilas was interested in AI ethics. So we created a module that is being used for that purpose. These are things that allow for collaboration across institutions. It allows for collaboration across schools and disciplines. And that was one of the ideas here. So that it allows you to do all these things. Now, we got some feedback from students. We asked students, I'm going to skip here. We ran a survey, I think it was last semester, and we got like 186 students, undergrad, and 34 graduate students who were taking these. Because we were able, again, to get it approved for the graduate level as well as undergraduate level. Some faculty would say, but graduate students are different from undergrad. Not if you don't know anything about the topic. The first time I actually learned about RPA, I learned in the same way that my undergraduate student learned, the same content. I used the same introductory level knowledge. I don't speak Spanish. I plan hopefully on learning how to speak Spanish. I will start like kindergarten students with the alphabet. I should not be offended. I may be faster, but at the same time, I'm starting at the same level. And that was the idea here. So we asked the students, this is just a description of the student participants. The survey, we focused on a couple of points. We wanted to understand what are the drivers? Why did they select those courses? A big portion of the students were interested in learning about these things. So they were from not only from accounting, but they were also from the business school, and they wanted to learn about these things. These are buzzwords. When you talk about AI, it's applied in finance and accounting and in marketing and supply chain management, etc. So students are interested in learning about that. They needed more credit to graduate. Others they wanted the flexibility in the timing. So these are things that are interesting. We actually, financial aid, because like at Rutgers Education, although it's a state university, but still not that cheap. So one of the things that the students wanted is to maintain their financial aid status, and they would take those credits. We actually had some research, also some questions related to the quality of the content. They were happy in general. They had some things, and keep in mind that some of those contents were recorded years ago. I mean, it's not necessary. We don't have the same resources that those companies have, and as a result, the content that we're creating is not always the same quality that is produced by, for example, Google or Microsoft or Tableau or UiPath. We simply don't have those resources. We try to improve them, but these are things that I record in my office, or Miklos records in his office, or something like that. We try to make it slightly better. Maria is actually creating some very good cybersecurity courses, and those are pretty good. But again, they are not as professional as others. Because the focus for us is not how the video looks like as much as what's the content in there. The content, students will not find it elsewhere. The video quality, they can go everywhere and can watch like videos that are much nicer. It's like the same way that my slides, they look boring. They are not nice. They don't look that interesting, but the content hopefully is interesting, right? It's interesting. Please say yes. Okay, good, thank you. I told you, it's good for my ego. I have a very fragile ego. So, you see, when I told my kids one time that I would like to become like, if I don't make it in academia, I was planning on becoming a stand-up comedy, my kids, they were like, but Dad, you're not funny. So, ever since I'm having like complex issues and all these things. Anyways. So, approximately all of the students, except one student who was very upset, I don't know why, but all of the other students, they said that they would recommend this kind of system to others. The first semester that we had to actually explain to the students what it is. Now I ask my students, has any one of you like taken any BYOC courses? And most of my students would say that yeah, or at least they heard of it. So this is something that started to pick up, and they are kind of understand it. Now, one of the things that we wanted to talk about is how you can expand it. Generalizability. So for now, most of the content on this system is created by our team. It's mostly related to accounting. We started to have slightly more interest from other people. Now, from other departments. Nothing prevents someone from a totally different school, totally different university to also collaborate on this. We actually have a team, Miklos referred to that yesterday, where we're trying, we call it advice, and we're trying to make it like as a collaboration between different schools and sharing content. Universities share content sometimes, but it's more difficult, especially because of the structured curriculum. So that's basically the idea. And here, one thing that I didn't put because I was told that it would be too arrogant to say that this is really good. And like Michael always says, this is the best thing since sliced bread. Do you have any questions? Please go ahead.
I have like two things that I want to mention, and then I'll open the floor. You guys, this is fantastic. And for example, I have my team here. One of the things we are doing from a Deloitte perspective, a couple of years ago, we had a very interesting learning within the firm about learning nuggets. Learning nuggets is to try to put things into like 5-10 minutes video and put those videos available for practitioners. For example, if I'm going to do a review, an audit of accounts receivable, I have like a 300-page guidance that people, they don't want to read a 300-page guidance, for example, internal control. So we had this training about building learning nuggets, which is small videos so people can pretty much listen this anywhere. And you have like the introduction part, you have the more detailed part. And it's, for example, right now, everything when we issue policy here in Spain, what I tell my team is that no big emails. If we need to have a very message and a very complicated message, we need to think into how we can transform that into a nugget, into a very short video, just like TikTok. Because right now, the new people that are entering into the profession, as you said, maintaining their attentions, it's very difficult. And this is becoming very, very transformational because people, they love the learning nuggets. They learn these shorts videos. It's something that they're used to, and it's helping us a lot. And with that, they can use actually what you're saying. It's the building blocks or like a Lego strategy. You can learn the nuggets you want whenever you want. You're on the subway. You download the nuggets, and you can listen to that on the subway while you're driving to the office. So it has become right decision, and our people really love it. So taking this into the university level, I think that this is incredible. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
Open the floor.
Can I just say something? Actually, the original name that we had, sorry, I clicked. Actually, the original name that we selected was We Are Lego, because it's Rutgers, so we are, and we used Lego. But we were told by the legal department that they will sue us. So we had to change it to like BYOC. But originally, we thought of it as building blocks. And in many cases, the modules, we say it's a week worth of, and we always call it a week worth of learning, because most of the time we have shorter videos. Whenever possible, we break it down into multiple videos for the same reason that you mentioned, Kleber. It's difficult to maintain or to keep the attention, like to maintain the attention of the students. And by the way, I'm talking about students, once again, also continuing education for professionals who want to learn a little bit about the topic, but they don't want to take an entire course. Please go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm interested on one thing you mentioned, that is the AI-based assessment. And my question is, what kind of AI do you use? Or because some AIs, or most of them have sometimes make up things, and that's what we call hallucination. So when you are making the tests, so, do humans, your professors, check it, or how do you deal with that, or maybe you don't have that problem?
So, to clarify that, the assessments themselves are created by the instructor. And then reason is, one of the things is the accuracy of the test, etc., plus the fact that the university is still not comfortable enough using just completely automated things for that. We do have certain questions or certain things that are more algorithmic, but that's not this is not the same thing. I mean, algorithmic assessments have been used for a very long time, where the number is changing, etc., especially in accounting. If you have calculations, the number would change, name of the company would change, etc. That's not new. Currently we use visualization for the assessments, and AI, we're trying to also use some of that in order to prepare for the recommender system. So the entire system is using some of that. Now, that's more of at the back end than it is at the front end of it. Still, the university requires certain things from faculty. Like, for example, an assessment, because if I create a module, I'm supposed to also provide the assessment for it. I'm responsible for it. Not all faculty are comfortable using AI to generate this kind of questions. And it's not necessary, because, again, our focus in this part, honestly, is more on the learning part than the grade. I honestly, eventually the students will be using, like, they have notes, they have their books, etc. They need to learn the content. That's our focus. More so than, for instance, just giving them a difficult exam or a complicated exam that would make their life miserable. That's our philosophy in a way. We want them to learn, and that's the main goal behind all this. We used to, actually, the content of those courses are already available on YouTube. We have them we have what we call a digital library. We have a YouTube channel with courses, full courses, entire courses, ranging from undergraduate all the way to PhD level courses, including continuous auditing and machine learning and text mining. All these are available, but you don't get credit for it. So if you just want to learn, actually the students don't even need us to learn for that. They can go to and search for on YouTube how to do certain things. The difference is they don't get official credit for it. They won't have it on their transcript when they apply for jobs.
There's, I think, one more question here, one there, and then we'll probably need to close in order to be able to have the last presentation and go for coffee break. If you guys want to trade coffee break for more questions, we don't have any problem with that. But I don't think so, right?
Okay, I've got two comments. One, I've taught for 40 years, and I've taught in Brazil, the UK, and Australia. And I can tell you with complete sincerity, the students in Brazil would do anything you wanted. If you gave them this model, they would do it. Those students I taught. The students I've taught in these other places would not do it. they won't look at videos. COVID killed that. When I was in Australia, I couldn't get the students to look at videos, and that was 2012, 2015. They wanted tuition by the person. So how would you deal with that in your model if they won't look at your 5-minute videos? Secondly, ChatGPT, a study is going to be published very soon in Issues in Accounting Education with about 380 authors on it.
I'm one of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you know what it came out with. Basically, it's almost as good in many cases, right? So how do you cope with that as well if you're running a system where you've got both things involved?
So those are okay. Let me address them separately because they are different. The first one is, and I understand what you're saying. Again, the idea here is to deliver the content in such a modularized way while allowing students to get credit for them. Now, if a student doesn't want to take that and instead they want to learn in the traditional 3-credit courses, nothing prevents them from doing that. But let them have the option. So we are actually talking to people like in Durham University, and they are interested in this kind of learning. And one of the things is, again, it brings some expertise that are, think of it as guest speakers. Some students like guest speakers, others they just want their instructor to teach everything. What you do with it is it's basically a choice that the instructor has to do based on what their students want. The goal, of course, eventually is to teach the students what they need, to prepare them for the future. Again, how you do that, it's still the prerogative of the faculty or the instructor themselves. This is the first part. And again, it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to apply. It's not a one-size-fits-all. The idea is actually not to make it a one-size-fits-all. So in Comilla's, for example, and I forgot to mention that, they wanted to have not the flexibility, but the instructor wanted to have the expertise, however, is using specific content. In that case, the instructor has the ability to limit what modules the students will learn. If I don't know much about text mining, I can actually ask an expert, and the modules will be pre-selected. Students will not have this flexibility. That's if I want to force this content on them. It remains in the hands of the faculty. The other point that you mentioned is regarding ChatGPT. That's a totally different thing, and we've been actually discussing those things in the paper that was David Wood and others. It's a paper that we had 328 authors on the paper. That's very weird in accounting. We couldn't even put all the names in the paper. We had to put an online appendix for it. So one of the things is it can perform very well. ChatGPT can answer very well accounting questions in general, especially when they are conceptual. It knows it. It's not difficult. Now, how do you deal with that? I actually encourage my students. I tell them, please use ChatGPT. Don't copy-paste, because if you copy-paste it, you're not using your critical judgment. And when you go later on, start your work, if everything you're doing is what AI is doing, why would the firm hire you? They will fire you and simply buy AI, because in this case, it's going to be cheaper for them. Rather than pay you a salary, they pay OpenAI for access to ChatGPT, unless you bring in something new to the table. Now, that's one thing. I personally encourage my students to use ChatGPT, and instead of asking them, for example, extract information from, let's say, this case, or answer these questions about this case, I tell them, this is one of the ways to do that. Please look at what ChatGPT answers, ask ChatGPT, and then analyze ChatGPT's answer. That's one way of doing that. Just by analyzing the answer or the response from ChatGPT, they already learned. That's again how my person. But this is still uncharted waters. We still don't know much about how this is going to affect education. Sorry, go ahead.
Super nice presentation.
Thank you.
From the Lego piece, I think you should reconsider connecting to them. They actually has a part of their core strategy, lifelong learning. They have their professional Lego series. We use that for when we do strategy work, also with executives, build your own future. So this could actually be super interesting for them to see
for Lego.
For Lego.
I like
it.
And
we can set up, instead of just ask legal, go ask Lego.
Okay, that's
because
good.
it would actually fit well in within their core strategy and what they want to achieve. So that's one thing. The other thing, I think, listening to what you're saying, essentially, this is just a knowledge network that you're trying to build up, and the value will increase with the number of participants joining, either as a student, a contributor, even more. And I think that is super interesting to see, and I really hope that you would expand beyond your own faculty, etc. But I also just would encourage you to look at this new sort of infrastructure. Would that allow you to also rethink your funding model, your way of collecting something that could be different? It would open up for a new mindset. I mean, super cool that you have done it within the realms of what you do today, and yeah, make it more relevant for the next generation of students. But you could also rethink if there are opportunities to collect money in new areas and domains.
When it comes to business model, it's especially because we are a state university and kind of collecting funds. This is very, and first, thank you for your comment. And I like at least Rasmus learned, for example, that Budweiser versus Budweiser, and now he's like legal versus Lego. So that's good. He used the same technology, so the same methodology. When it comes to money, it's a huge headache. That's why I let Nicholas deal with that. I mean, he's more senior and he can handle that, and kind of it's difficult. But actually, you're right. This is, in a way, that's something that can change in the future.
But I mean, the analogy of saying this is sort of crowd sourcing in many ways.
In education.
Content, education, etc. Crowdfunding is close by, and you are in link with contributors, big companies, donation. I mean, there is a number of ways that this could easily be extended into something that could generate new revenues, new way, leading to new ways of also doing research.
Let me tell you, it's actually it took us a lot of funds to just come up with this model. So I should have actually put like a PayPal account here. If anyone would like to contribute to us, we would be fine with that. Thank you so much.
So thank you guys very much. It's going to be an applause. It's great initiative. I promise this is the last part, and we are going to try to do in 10-15 minutes, and then we are out for break. So I'm going to probably skipping very fast through the slides. This is a paper that has been already published. It's published out there, and I have this is part of my DBA thesis for Comedias, and my director of the thesis is sitting right there. He really helped me a lot, and I have all my team sitting there that helped me a lot. This paper started in the pandemic. Within the pandemic, everybody was going crazy about going concern. I mean, we as auditors and the companies, everybody was out, and hotels were shut down. We didn't know how much time they were going to be shut down. And we had a tremendous crisis going on about should we include going concern on auditors' opinion or not. I mean, for those that are not familiar with going concern is a warning the auditors, they need to put on their auditor's report saying, look, there's a doubt that the company may run out of business in the future. So the big question is, when do we make that alert or not? So everything started with this on the pandemics. And you're gonna have the presentation. I mean, this is the objective was to say, okay, we have a lot of information. Can we try to help auditors? Because first, on national office level, probably we don't have enough time to deal with all of the consultation that's gonna reach. And how do we know that every audit that we issued, every opinion that we are issuing, it's right? So we had our team first, let's think about how we can do this, going from the whole population to analyzing the exception, what we can do to try to do some sorting about this information, and try to have like some predictability about building a model that would say to tell auditors, look, you need to consider to include a paragraph, and if you don't include a paragraph, then talk to people on risk, on quality, because you need to be something maybe doing wrong. The paper is published on IJDAR. You have here the paper with all the reference. So you can go in the paper, you can see all the reference and how we build the model. I mean, the whole script and everything that we have used is on the paper. As I said, I mean, when we start this was on the outbreak. Outbreak, we created a checklist saying, okay, let's do some scoring. Let's do just like the banks does. Let's build a checklist, and we give some points to some questions, and those questions will give our overall points. And this was a very big checklist, and we'll give an overall point. If you have an overall big points, you need to consult. And it was a way to filter the consultation that would be reaching to us. And then what we decide to do is that since we have all of that data, all of the checklist for all of the variables, we said, okay, why don't we put this into R and try to do a decision-making model? Are there any question on this checklist that has more importance than the others? I mean, how can we play with this data? Because instead of people answering 45 questions, it takes a lot of time. We as auditors, we always try to do something on a most efficient way. How can we try to reduce those questions, or what are the questions or the variables that are more important? So we put that into a model. We built a decision tree, and then we said, okay, this looks like that we have some variables that are very important, and those variables that are very important would give a very high level of predictability. So we said, oh, let's use that. For the next year, we used that on the 2020 audit. That was January 2021, February 2021. And what we did then was, okay, was the model right or was the model wrong? And why was it wrong? So we could recalibrate the model. So this is something that started December 2019. There was a lot going on about building the checklist, doing a first model, applying that model, recalibrating it until 2022. How do we build the checklist, first of all? I mean, that first checklist on December 2019, there was three things that we took into consideration. First of all, the Altman Zeta score. I mean, that's a very well known. There was a predictability model to see if the company may have a problem in the future or not. So we got all those variables. Those were pretty much ratios. We said, okay, we want to know what are these ratios. These ratios would give rise to some kind of a points, and that would be something that more points you have, more consultation you need to do. Then there was a very interesting book that it's right here. The signs were there. This author, what he does, he looks at the major breakdowns that happened in the UK. Carillion, Valerie. And they said, what were the things that were in common with this with this trouble, with these companies when they had trouble, that somebody never looked, or they should have looked in order to take into consideration. And when we saw those variables, we realized, I mean, they were very, very much related to liquidity, amount of cash, amount of reserves that those companies have. And then there was another thing that I had an idea that I took from a book that I read from Malcolm Gladwell, which is, if I'm only looking at financial figures, financial ratios, probably I'm missing something, which is the auditor judgment or the auditor feeling about the company. I mean, the partner that's doing the audit, they have a lot of information. They know about the company. They know about the directors of the company. So we created a variable, which is, okay, you, partner, what is your risk sense in relation to this company? So this was a very subjective. We didn't want to tie partners to a financial ratio only. because you could have a company that was okay, but the partners, if they felt that there was something that was wrong, and they knew the company, they knew the management, that was a very important feedback that we thought we would need to ask the people. So we put that also on our checklist, saying, okay, calibrate or give me what's your points, your risk point on the checklist. So we throw all this thing to the partners. They prepare the checklist, and then we throw everything into a decision tree within our. Here we had tremendous help from my director, from Jose Portela, because he's the man on all the coding. As you know, I'm a poor auditor. I mean, coding, it's not my real thing. So there was a lot of help of how can we break down and we can transform something like this complicated that would give us a very, very big accuracy. And we were like, where is the trade-off between full accuracy and trying to make this thing as easy as possible? So we transformed this thing into a very simple decision tree. And that decision tree, pretty much, there was two ways. And within, if you go the way up, you would ask 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions, indicators, and that would probably, it would tell you if the model would tell you if you should consider, if you should have to include a going concern paragraph or not. And if you're under this situation, you would be like 4 questions, 5 questions, and the model would tell you if you should consider including a going concern section. Sorry, this thing is in Spanish, but basically those were the main critical ratios that the model considered in order to take into consideration. So this is total reserves over asset. This is the results of the company in between asset and the sales, debt over assets, working capital over assets, sales. And then also one thing that we have decided to include in the model was our evaluation as a firm about the sector where the company was operating. When we look back into the COVID, when we were during the pandemic, definitely hotels and leisure, especially traveling, it was a lot more problematic than, for example, entertainment at home. So we did our own assessment to see which were those sectors that back on that time we felt that they were going to be more risky than the others. And those were the main variables that the model is always considering. And then we have the final matrix. I mean, at the end of the day, from all the opinions that we have issued, I mean, model would say, no, you don't need to have a going concern. Opinion did not have a going concern. And then we have those cases where the model said, yes, you need to have a going concern. But when we look at the final opinion, they didn't have a going concern. And then we have those cases, 146 cases, which is model said you need a going concern, and the opinion had a really going concern. And this was very, very useful for us from quality and risk management, because I didn't investigate. Like, okay, this is no and no, looks right, model looks right, opinion looks right. It's not something that it needs to bring to my attention. I have 146. Model says you need to have a going concern paragraph. Partner said you need to have a going concern paragraph. Looks right. I don't need to have too much attention on this. And then what we did on the year 2, we did a very investigation about what happened with these cases, with these 200 cases. In those 200 cases, we enter into every auditor opinion, and we said, why did it not use what the model told you to use? And that was prior for them to issuing the opinion. So we only have to filter, and this is like your priority list. When you have only very limited time, we had only to concentrate it on those cases. And those cases when we realized that, okay, this is the company that were able to get some subsequent financing, or the group has given them support or a guarantee for all the financial, the money they're going to be needing, or there was a very, very subsequent positive thing on cash flow. For example, they decide to sell a site or something, so they were having very, very positive effect. So this was very good, and this was a way you say, I get all this data, how do I prioritize, how I construct something that can help me to make a decision, or at least how can I use that as a firm to make sure that my whole population is doing the right thing. And especially on those years that we were back then on 2000, when we had the pandemic and it was a lot of trouble for everybody. So for the future, what we decide to do, model looks good, but every year we learn more, and what we do is, okay, does any variable change in respect to last year? Is there any weight on the variable that needs changing? Is there any other new variable that we need to include? So this was very, very good for us, because was a way and to use tools like our tools as decision trees, and how these tools can really help auditors to increase quality of their work, or we as a firm, how can we increase the oversight that we have on our audit opinions that we issue. It's impossible for me as the chief quality and risk officer for audit and assurance to review a $3,000 audit report, but this gives me a lot of guarantee that things are doing well. And we presented this to the regulator, and actually they liked it very much. So that was 15 minutes. Sorry that I went so fast. I'm here. I mean, if anybody have any question, and if not, I mean, go, Javier.
Thank you, Clever, for your presentation, your stunning presentation. It was very, very, very impressive. No? Well, I will say, because you didn't say it before, and because you are very humble, but I want to share with all of you that your thesis from your DBA was awarded last year from the Royal Academy of Doctors of Spain as the best thesis, the best dissertation presented in the last year. So congratulations for that, and I think all of you can see that it is unbelievable, your work. Thank you very much for that and for sharing it with us. I have only one question. Are you doing this just as a research, or are you using this in your day after day work? Are you using this with your team? Are you applying this? That's my only question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Javier. And the thesis won the prize for the Academia Royal Society in Spain as the best thesis for finance last year. And I think probably won the prize because of your question. We are using this on a day-to-day in Deloitte. So when I started the DBA program, and I teach at Comillas, I'm associate professor, but I think it's very, very important this liaison that we professionals and academics, the more we are together, the better is, because otherwise, if we live on a different world, it does not make any sense. I come to these Congress and I ask my team to come to this Congress because we learn a lot, and that's the only way we can try to build bridges between academia and profession. And I was only able to do this because I was like, oh, I'm learning so much, and how can I use this on my day-to-day? We are really using this on day-to-day. And when I decided to take that one step further, to say, okay, let me publish the paper, it was because how can I transmit this to the whole professional, to the other auditors, to PwC, EY. We are good friends with everybody. I mean, that the whole thing about audit is to increase quality everywhere in the world, because auditing, it's a public interest service. We are working for the public interest. So I said, this cannot be a thesis just by itself. Let's put it on a paper so anybody can have access. We are using in Deloitte Spain, and I know there's some other Deloittes that have considered for their assessment as well. Thank you.
Is this a replacement for the Altman's model, or is it to be used when it's in the gray area?
No, this is not a replacement, because auditor judgment cannot be replaced. Okay, you need auditor judgment. As I said, as I put it on the slide, sometimes the model would say, you need to put a going concern, and the partner said, I'm not going to put a going concern. And this was very good for me to oversight the risk and to see if they were coming to the right decision. When the model give an answer and the partner decide not to follow the model, it was very, very interesting for us to have a conversation with a partner and understand what's everything on the background to make a decision. So I don't think models will substitute, never, auditor's judgment. Auditor's judgment goes a lot beyond. I mean, the model would have to be so complex, so expensive, that's totally impossible to substitute.
No, listen, I just meant, do you start on your, your little decision tree after initially doing like an Altman's and or whatever standard procedures, or is it in place of those?
You start the audit, you get the figures, you put in the model with the figures that you're auditing, and the model pretty much tells you, look, this is a warning, and this is how we are applying. Any more questions? So I really want to thank my panelists here with me, and I really wanted to thank all your questions and all of you, and we have the coffee break. Thank you guys very much.